My apologies for being late. We've been having all kinds of technical difficulties. Well, I have anyway. My camera and my microphone, and uh, it's just a real pain in the ass. But we do have a YouTube up, so I can go ahead and put that on here now. And my apologies. Again, once in a blue moon, we have these types of issues, and there is seemingly no controlling them. Also, if you want to be a co-host on this, I don't have the link. And I can't seem to get it. So
I just put it up for the YouTube chat, so they'll have to copy and paste it.
Okay, well, I mean,
so they're not going to see it. Every time you try to type a URL in the YouTube chat, it just doesn't show the message for others.
That's right. And so I can't really the only thing I can do, let's see if I can.
So it's just my name with a message redacted or something?
It's not even your name. I don't see anything.
Yeah, nothing. It blanks out completely. So
right.
I'm sorry, but if by now you don't have the link, then you're not going to ever be a co-host, because I'm never going to put it up again. Because I mean, by now we've been using the same one for God knows how long. Yeah, we're going to be a little bit on the short side today.
Break out the semaphore flags.
Okay. Oh, okay. Now it suddenly showed up. Boy, I'll tell you that we got some real Lulu.
Well, she's fashionably late.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
For modern technology.
Are these my problems or these Zoom problems? Who in the hell knows? All right, now you have the link up there on YouTube. How's everybody doing today? There's
Stephen Rose right on time.
There we go. Oh, look, fair link, Moohead. I mean, it's in my fucking shorts. Why don't you go hunting for it there? Gee.
That's a hot link.
Yeah. Connect this. Oh. It's like we're back to the hot dog eating contest again.
Hey, Keyblade, I mean, yeah, it was funny. Rox looked at me and said 75. That's not even a good night for me. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not allowed to say.
Sheesh.
I know. 14 minutes after 6, and yes, we're just getting on the air because yes, I fucked up, and yeah, I'm having all kinds of problems with my system. Goodbye, Najoku. Yeah, that's right. That's like Goodbye, Columbus, Richard Benjamin movie. Paula Prentice, his wife, and then you have Goodbye, Najoku. I want to point out a story that will just.
We really need to have the background track of Goodbye to You by
Scandal.
Scandal,
yes.
Thank you.
Patty Smythe.
Patty Smythe, yes. That's right. Who is the former wife of, or maybe current wife of?
I thought she was the current wife of John McEnroe.
That's right then, yes.
Amsterdam.
Here's a story that will tell you how tenuous everything really is. And this will be the only thing that even comes close to political stuff, but it's more a social media thing. This is members of the Homeland Security Police are standing guard at the North Carolina Monument in the Gettysburg National Military Park on Saturday as armed right-wing militia groups descended on Gettysburg, Pennsylvania over the weekend in a bid to protect the historic town from a flag-burning protest that never occurred. It turns out that rumors were intentionally put up on Facebook by a group that called itself Left Behind USA, which promised an event where attendees would, quote, burn flags in protest of thugs and animals in blue. And the post also said that organizers would be giving away free small flags to children to safely throw into the fire. Now, what ended up happening is about 50 armed militia, right-wing militia people showed up, and this was all propagated by false social media. So what I want to point out, and and I did send Brian a message, I'm pulling off of Facebook and I am snoozing all political content on my timeline because quite honestly, it's a mess. The whole thing's a mess and I'm tired of it. Nobody's going to change anybody's mind about a damn thing. And a lot of this stuff just isn't even true to begin with. So I just want, sports. And for as long as we have to talk about sports, which is under some question once again, Patrick Mahomes is a happy guy today. $400 million happy. I mean, a 10-year contract. And, this is what happened to the Texas Rangers. No.
Much.
A-Rod was $252 million. I mean, Mahomes is a wonderful, wonderful quarterback. But how many guys do you know who are going to have Tom Brady-esque duration careers? I know
but this only covers him to, I believe, age 34,
4, something like that. Yeah.
35,
now,
something like that. So that's not
12
that's
years
not
total?
that bad. Yeah, that's not that bad. So he should be about where Aaron Rodgers is.
Well, they had to do it. And again, this is the gun to the head thing. This is the Cavaliers and LeBron James. The Cavaliers had to sit and wait and then hear the decision, right? It's not like they were going to trade LeBron James. They would become the ignominious of all franchises if they traded LeBron James away, because anything they'd have gotten in return would have been non-compensation. So the Chiefs had to do what they've done, but man, that is a massive investment in one player. And for a guy who's really mobile, you never know what might happen. But, it's good news for quarterbacks because, now they have this contract to point to and say, hey, look, well, what am I worth to you? And it may not be 400 million, but if it's a couple $100 million, I mean, it's all real good,
Yeah. Dak Prescott, Jerry, sign over your yacht.
Yeah. And the funny thing is how funny life is. 2 quarterbacks signed deals. The big news, of course, was Mahomes. The other is Colin Kaepernick, who signed a deal with Disney. They're going to let him put the mouse costume on. No, I mean, there's a partnership deal for a series of things that are going to run on Disney networks that will be related to racial equality and things of that nature. So I thought
an animated series.
It didn't really get into much detail about things, and it didn't get into how much Kaepernick was getting for it. But it is interesting how both start out as quarterbacks and one ends up more getting his money some other way. The partnership deal, it's a docu-series, I guess is what they call them now. And the deal between his production arm, RA Vision Media, and Disney was announced on Monday. It will provide a platform to showcase the work of minority directors and producers and tell scripted and unscripted stories that explore race, social injustice, and the quest for equity. So, and I think that should say equality. Equity would be something that the Wall Street people would be far more interested in.
Mahomes is thinking about that right now as far as his equity.
There ain't no equality on Wall Street.
Only when they go splat jumping out the window.
Yeah. So 2 quarterbacks got deals, just one in football. The Sacramento Kings have closed their facility. And the funny thing is that the lousier they get, the only thing that could kill them would be COVID. I mean, it's they've closed their facility after a positive COVID-19 test in their traveling party. So that's just one more down the tubes. And that facility is not going to reopen either before the team departs for Orlando, where all these sick people will be descending. So
why did they choose Orlando out of all places? It's like one of the top 5 states in terms of numbers of COVID.
no, it is the top state and it is the epicenter in the country now. And they didn't really know that at the time. And the reason they chose Florida is Orlando, because of Disney Networks and, the ABC, ESPN thing. And also the fact that the governor was extremely friendly, and that's just the way I'll put it, toward all things coming to Florida, including the WWE, including top-ranked boxing, including the NBA and spring training, and all of the things, and opening those opportunities. There was something else too that came down here too.
Probably all the football eventually will be starting up. You got Tampa Bay, Miami, Jacksonville, two baseball teams. Well, Miami, Tampa Bay, and it just keeps adding up.
So the Kings of so like so many. Stephen is in here twice. That's got to be really funny. Is one of them eating and the other one not? Because that would really be freaky.
Yeah, it's removed one of them.
I removed one.
I only have one.
Yeah, I removed one.
I saw two, but now there's just one, and that's the one who's in the federal witness protection program, apparently.
Yep.
So, I mean, another kind of warning flare for the NBA. Before this whole thing gets started, I think that there have been warning signs regarding the virus for months now, and more recently down here in Florida, it's just really on red alert, and in other states too, in Arizona where Brian is.
Yeah.
Here in Texas. I'm sorry?
I said here in Texas as well.
Yes, in Texas as well. I mean, but the warning signs are not deterring the NBA, and we'll see if that ever gets off the ground. Baseball is getting a lot of warning signs. The Nationals and the Astros have shut down their facilities. This is like becoming a daily list of things, and it's a peculiar situation, to say the least. Two, interesting franchises that have very recent World Series victories, and they have to shut down their facilities. The Astros, the word got out because somebody wiretapped them. So,
hey, Mr. Muhead.
Yeah.
Do you think that Major League Baseball should have took the NBA route and just did a bubble and just went to 1 or 2 areas?
I'm not convinced that until the NBA model succeeds, I'm not prepared to say which is a good way. I don't think there is a good way. I think, unfortunately, right now, things are very, very prevalent. The amount of virus and people getting it, to put it in perspective, Pinellas County, which is where Tampa is, which is directly adjacent to Orange County, which is where Orlando is, at 5 hospitals in the greater Pinellas County, Tampa Bay area, 5 have reached their maximum in ICU. Okay? They have no more room in their intensive care units. So this is just starting to really start. The infrastructure is being taxed, and all these other things coming here. If you're planning on coming here, and if Freddie Freeman for the Atlanta Braves is really up against it and his fever gets worse, and there may not be ICU room for these players if they need it. And it isn't that they're all going to need ICU care, but a percentage, an unknown percentage, depending upon the player and what their pre-existing conditions are. And, you know, it's got to make Cookie Carrasco feel absolutely like, do I have to do this? And he has said he's ready to go. He wants to, you know, gung-ho with the season. And I think it's a huge mistake for a guy coming off of leukemia and chemotherapy. It's an absolute mistake. I'm sorry, it was the Nationals, Astros, and now the Cardinals as well, who have shut down workouts. So 3 more teams that way. That's not good news. But the question I wanted to ask the panel, Major League Baseball may not be a game of the big name guys like the NBA is, okay? I mean, if Tom Brady got sick, and I'm not wishing this on Tom Brady so that nobody gets mad at me, but if he were to get ill and be unable to play, I mean, the interest in the Buccaneers would go right down the crap.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, the whole storyline would be ruined.
Yeah.
Well, you know, when players like David Price of the Dodgers just say, well, I'm opting out of playing, and so there's going to be no David Price. All right. Nick Markakis is the second Braves player to opt out of the season. Do you guys, and we'll start in a reasonable sequence here. We'll start with Rick. You're our baseball guy here. I mean, is this something that baseball can really survive, or the season, will the interest wane that much more because there are some large names who are walking away and saying my health is more important than this shortened season?
I think it's going to hurt baseball a lot more. All these sports leagues are, for the most part, star driven. You identify a team, you immediately think of their top stars, and then everybody else is like second tier or whatever. So when you think baseball, the first person you think of is like Mike Trout.
Yeah.
Well, he's with the Angels. His wife is expecting a child, and they showed him on TV today during practice running the bases with a mask on. and he has already expressed that he's having some concerns about how Major League Baseball is working this out as far as getting ready for spring training and what have you. He's not all that convinced.
He's a known base stealer, though, so that it's kind of a good get up for him.
Well, the name on the back of his jersey is kind of a dead giveaway, so he might want to change. He might want to borrow somebody else's uniform. But I mean, you take away the stars from some of these teams, no one's going to want to have any impetus to go watch them. Like second tier players. Granted, they'll have enough players if these players opt out. I guess they've got they're going to start out with like 28 or something like that. Go drop down to 26. Go back up to 30, then they'll have another pool of 30 players to choose from during the course of the year. But I think it's becoming more and more difficult because the bottom line is they're going to try and play 60 games in about 66 days. And rainouts and that ain't going to happen. This is going to be a really tight window, and it could just blow up right in their face.
Well, Stephen, I'm going to go to you next. I wanted to ask you, is this going to look like a scab league by the time this is all done? Are all teams going to go through this, and the fan base is going to be stuck watching a lot of minor league talent, all because Major League Baseball owners just don't want to give up the ghost?
Okay, I wanted to add to what he said. It's going to be a yes and a no for this question, for the answer. And the reason why is because we only have 60 games, and when we talk about David Price and all these other high prolific stars in the league, basically most of your stars are pitchers, right? And then after that, it's your hitters after that, and you have a couple guys here and there, but it's usually your pitchers, your star pitchers. Usually you market them around 20 games a year, right? 20, 25 games, right? That they usually pitch, somewhere around in that ballpark, depending on their rotation, depending on the team. So if you only have it's condensed down to 60, it's not like you're going to be able to market them anyway. So you just have to go with what little you have. So the season's already going to be pretty much watered down. I mean, imagine going 30-30, or imagine going 40-20 and being the number one seed. It's going to be an odd number of games. So of course, baseball just wants to can continue this tradition and they want to go on. But my question is if they're going to be traveling around from throughout the country, even though they're limited to a small proximity, I'm wondering if it's going to raise the or the probability of the chance that a team or somebody might get a case of COVID. And then what if you have to quarantine the entire team? And so now you're talking about 15 days. What is the plan when that happens? Like, how do you go about that? What do you do?
You know, it's kind of like an honor code, isn't it? I mean, the whole idea of a bubble is only as good as the people who are following instructions. And unfortunately, so far, our country has not been really good in general at following instructions. When we watched other countries in Europe really start getting tattooed by this virus, we didn't really take charge and say, we've got to keep washing our hands, sanitizing, don't touch our faces until we've washed our hands and sanitized. All of the things that we needed to do. If the players are giving lip service, but still decide, like so many Americans have, that they're going to go out to eat at a restaurant inside and a place that other players are at, and they're going to congregate together, you can bet that multiple players will wind up with the virus. You know, it's only as good as, you know, people are as far as adhering to protocols.
We Americans are stubborn by nature, and we were the most pampered, spoiled people on the planet. And I think this is a case right here where the reason why the numbers are going up, because we just don't listen to authority.
I think there's a lot of reasons, and I think that there is an element of that, but I think also, I think our infrastructure is being tested on many levels. First of all, if you would have said before, well, if something like this happened, we've got all great science in America. We are the world leader in science. And so we're going to come up with, if not a vaccine, we're going to come up with something that is really going to dilute the symptoms for those people who really get it worse. But it hasn't happened. Because the infrastructure of research and development, I got a bug flying around me. Research and development arm of pharmaceutical companies have been really de-emphasized in light of economic viability and market values. So they've been put on the spot, and you're starting literally from a dead stop trying to get to a vaccine that may be 70%, 75% effective if it's ever created. We never had a vaccine for HIV, which is a virus, and there may never be. Now 2022 is being bandied about, and I don't pay attention to anything that I hear, but it will take X amount of time. And that has something to do with this too. You start telling people there's not going to be a vaccine for this thing until 2021 late or 2022.
I believe
people are going to say, fuck it, man. I'm not going to, I'm not going to sit around here forever. So there's an element of impatience that comes with it too.
But it's just weird how China and Europe's numbers are going down, but our numbers continue to rise.
Well, I mean, I think that in countries that maybe have a little bit more discipline than we do, I think that it can be done. But there's no evidence in the end until this thing is all over, which countries went about it permanently doing it the right way versus the wrong way. And you can argue time as far as on a measure, as far as were we open for not long enough, too long? Did we reopen too early? All of this now is kind of a non sequitur because we're in the middle of this thing. We're here to talk about sports. And the thing is, they're talking about starting up their leagues. I mean, this is a reopening, and then they're saying, oh, and we're going to have these written rules that the players are going to follow. Brian, baseball is not probably your favorite game, but I mean, is this going to possibly become scab baseball? Because there's just going to be periods. If you miss 2 weeks because of COVID, all right, and you're a player and you have definite,
I think they're going to miss. I think they're going to end up missing a lot more than that. They'll be on the DL for at least 30 days.
And if that's the case, that's half the season. I know.
Right. So, I mean, it really does make no sense for them to have any season at all, because you might as well just field double A teams or single A teams, because that's how well the fans are going to know who's out there playing.
Oh, and also to add, they also canceled the minor leagues.
Yeah, there's no minor league games. Now
Yeah.
tonight sometime, if they haven't already, they're supposed to release the schedules for all the major league teams. My understanding is that they're going to just stick primarily with the teams in their own respective divisions, and then the closest teams close to where their stadium is. So with the case of Cleveland, probably like maybe Cincinnati, possibly Pittsburgh, and then maybe Philadelphia, something like that. Where it's not, they're trying to restrict as much air travel as they possibly can, because with a plane with the size of the team, you're going to have your star players inside the plane and the others hanging on to the wing, I guess. I don't know.
I'll tell you, even more shocking part is how the players opted out of more teams being in the playoffs, considering you only have 60 games. And if you're a team like the Padres or one of these bottom level teams that probably could benefit from an 8-team playoff, they all opted out. It was just shocking that they wouldn't increase the playoff teams. They kept it as normal.
I can tell you in Florida, and the people that I know very well at my bank, I had a conversation with my bank people, and they were planning on July the 21st, opening up phase 1 of their office so that, people could actually come in and face-to-face their, investment people and, do the business that banking does indoors.
Yeah.
They have put that back until September 22nd.
Makes sense.
It makes sense, but September, I mean, there is no question that people in Florida realize that this thing, is like, Lieutenant Dan, you got legs. This thing's got serious legs, And when you start putting things off till the middle of September as a if come maybe, and that's for phase 1 reopening.
Yeah.
I mean, that will tell you the sports teams are coming to this area. It's like, it's not going to be ready.
Tampa Bay's starting to look like a better pick in the American League East because of what happened to the Yankees. Tanaka. Did you see that?
He got a Kanaka in the Tanaka.
How fast was it? 112 mile an hour line drive from Stanton. Right in the head. People.
Yeah.
That's probably the only ball he'll ever connect with the entire season, probably.
What was amazing is that he got up speaking fluent English.
I believe it.
No, I mean, so what is the story with him? I mean,
I don't know. I hadn't heard anything. He said the ball, after it hit Tanaka, they said the ball was in the air for about 4 seconds before it hit the ground.
Oh, I believe it.
I mean, that thing just went off his bat like a rocket.
Man, I mean, to me, Major League Baseball with a bunch of minor league or second, third tier players who are roster fillers, there's a real good chance that a number of, if they don't decide an opt out, that they're going to get sick during the course of the season. And I think that, and hi, Tony, by the way, thanks, Rox. I appreciate you getting him in. I think a lot of teams are going to be confronted with players who are frontline players who,
Mr. Boulette, I want to address one Anthony Obastar's comment. He said fake COVID numbers. Do you think they're also exaggerated on the cases of COVID to like scare?
I don't think there's any question that funding to hospitals has resulted in upcoding is what they refer to it. We talked about this on a previous show, that they are being given additional money to upcode patients who have other conditions to put down COVID so they can get more money in. But you can't fake deaths, okay?
Of course.
Dead is dead. And, we can make an argument whether there are 130,000 people in America who have died, or whether it's 100,000 that have died, directly attributable to COVID. Again, this is all.
Hey, did you know that COVID came in 9mm? 600 people found that out over the weekend.
I don't know. What are you referring to? I'm sorry.
There were 600 murders over the weekend.
Oh, well, I mean, and
I'm sure they're all going to get flagged as COVID.
And again, it depends which side of the fence you're on, but the virus exists and it is bad for some people. And for other people, it's like flu, which isn't good. For other people, it's
just carry it. Like some people don't have any symptoms at all.
Talk to Nick Cordero's wife today, okay, and try to tell her that it's not serious. After watching her husband go through a living hell for 3.5 months, including a leg amputation, the man was 41 years old and healthy and never had a problem in his life. And then he ends up dying after, it took everything away from him.
And they put him in a medically induced coma too, so that he could breathe.
Yeah, because his lungs were just decimated by this. So there are going to be some people who react in in an unexpected way. And I'm not saying that's going to happen to Major League Baseball players or the big names of Major League Baseball players, but it could.
Mr. Mueller, can I ask you a question? Do you think 60 games was an adequate number, or do you feel like it should have been a little bit more?
Again, it's a non-starter because I really don't think they're going to be able to start this thing and carry it through. And it's going to end up being egg in the face of Major League Baseball because as it is, and we've talked about this before, Major League Baseball is not the most popular sport now. Football and basketball way outweigh Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be a real old school baseball fan and you don't mind sitting 3 hours to watch a baseball game, and God damn it, if David Price ain't pitching on the hill every 4 days or 5 days, and if we're heading into playoffs as quickly as that, can you imagine what it would have been like if the Indians were in the playoffs and you said, well, Kluber's down the shitter, he's not going to be there. This is a non-starter.
I think we still should have had a top 8 playoffs, though. Like they should have increased the playoff teams for being that short of a season.
I don't think that it's going to be representative of anything. I really don't. I don't think the season's going to be representative of anything. And I think that it's going to be nothing but heartache because, again, it's not just going up in Florida, it's going up everywhere. And we can have, the questions of, are the cases really? Well, hospitalizations are up because I can tell you that my medical people are telling me this and they're not making this up for political reasons.
Yeah.
The 5 hospitals that are out of ICU space up in Pinellas County, what is ICU being used for? Is it all COVID related? It doesn't matter. This is our infrastructure. The fact of the matter is, if after the 4th of July, there may be more problems with people that would require some kind of ICU care. That's entirely possible. But on the other side of it, it's taxing to the infrastructure.
And even if they say it's 30%, COVID cases or patients in the ICU, which I was reading a report on that earlier, that's still a significant number, and that number could rise.
Yeah. And again, arguing what number is the accurate number is it's all subterfuge. That's all it is. What do they call it, Rick? When there's filibustering, that's really what it is. It's non-responsive. As far as baseball is concerned, if they start out, get 20 games in, and they start getting sick like flies, they're going to look like idiots. They're going to look like total idiots, and they're going to have to either pull the plug or play it with whatever bodies they can dredge up.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be in the best interest, and a really bad look for the league. Tony, are you there?
Man.
Okay, I hadn't heard your mellifluous voice. So.
I'm just letting you guys, it's your guys' show. I'm a guest. Just ramble on.
Yeah, the Memorial Golf Tournament in Dublin, Ohio has given up the idea of 8,000 fans per day with social distancing and said, fuck it, no fans. All right.
Yep. They did the same with the 3M Open
Which is-
here in
Which is a
Playing.
massive ding to their local revenue too.
Huge. I mean, this is not the kind of thing that, but everybody's realizing, and it's not just in Florida, that there are going to be glaring problems if you assemble that many people in enclosed areas. And we're waiting to see what political rallies and things of that nature, or protests, how that contributes to these rising numbers. Go ahead.
But doesn't that suck whenever, and it's unfortunate when you see a pandemic like this, it's almost sort of a survival of the fittest sort of mentality. So whenever the government says, oh, we're going to do a shutdown, like notice how only like the less fortunate are the ones that get mostly affected by this. Like there's some businesses that are gone that never coming back. And I know people personally are like struggling and stuff right now, barely making ends meet, if barely, especially in retail and the restaurant industry and stuff.
Yep.
And it's just unfortunate,
Yeah, I think there's so much going on now. Of course, you knew they were going to come after the Cleveland Indians for their name. And then they got after the Texas Rangers because of the Rump Ranger reference. So,
Oh, come on.
Well,
He's Rump Ranger.
but they're asking Hoynesy,
Hey,
hey
Rump
Hoynesy. Yeah,
If you guys
asking
the Redskins route and change your name.
if fucking hey Hoynesy, do you have a new name for the Cleveland Indians? And Hoynesy's answer was
Cleveland Tribe. The Cleveland the Tribe.
no, I mean that again is not going to cut it with Native Americans now, is it?
Oh, yeah.
That's
Even though
not
the
go-
team is named after a Native American who was actually a player on the team.
Mhm.
Grover Cleveland.
No.
Oh,
Napoleon LaHoy, or
Louis Sockalexis.
yeah, that's him.
all right.
He died in 1914, and when Napoleon LaJoie left to go coach another team, they decided to name the team after him and called them the Indians.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to be gone. There's no way that, and the interesting thing is what's happened in Washington, which I found really intriguing, is that 3 minority owners of the Redskins have said they don't want to be minority owners with the Redskins anymore. And it coincided with the Redskins writing their letter of that we're looking at, very closely on what to do with the team's name. And the 3 minority owners have said that we don't want to have anything to do with Daniel Snyder at this point. And Snyder, even though he was a major contributor to the Republican campaign of Donald Trump, it may have wandered too close to the middle here, because his minority group has just bailed on him in essence, and is trying to get out of the whole thing. Just remember that Jimmy Haslam was a minority owner in Pittsburgh. This is the times that we live in, I guess. But
change the name to the Cleveland Haslams. Let's go with
and this is part of the repercussions of all of this. And I grew up with the Cleveland Indians and Chief Wahoo, and that I'm not that interested in baseball now, because society changes, and it's a pastoral game in an urban kind of time. And it's where, what was it? George Carlin, who did a comedy routine about baseball, the difference between baseball and football. But the notion of sacrificing is obviously not really high on the American agenda today. The notion of manufacturing one run at a time, a la the Cardinals of the '68 World Series. The idea of, well, Lou Brock will get on, he'll steal a base, and then either Kurt Flood or whoever will knock a single to the opposite field, and Lou Brock will either steal third and steal home, or he'll come home on a single, whatever it is. and then Del Maxwell will strike out, make good plays in the infield. And that's kind of the way.
And Gibson will pitch a shutout. That'll be that.
That's it.
2-0.
So, today's the notion of waiting 3 hours for this game where mostly people are standing around isn't the greatest to begin with. And I don't know. The times that we live in, the future of these sports. I mean, basketball will survive because basketball, it's not the title, it's the individual accolades. We like to see the athletes do these remarkable things. So if it's a LeBron slam, or if whatever it is, or Giannis, in half court taking 2 dribbles and getting to the rim, is whatever the fantastic singular achievements of players are that really guides the marketing of the league. And we're going to see that, assuming that they play the games, we're going to see that. And whoever wins this faux title, I mean, that's fine. But we still see the individual achievements of the players. And we still will see Tom Brady under center for the Buccaneers. And we will see our favorite players in a football sense. And we'll see people crunching one another in a real physical game of football. And fans like that. But with baseball, it's like, 60 games, nobody's going to break any records in 60 games. There isn't going to be, and if somebody were to hit 400, what in the fuck would it matter?
And
I mean, you're not going to.
The number one seeds 35 and 25 or 33 and 27. You're going to be like, what the hell is this?
You're not going to get Ted Williams' son to auction off the frozen head, okay?
I think the fun part's going to be when I just wanted to find out if they're going to have any crowd noise during the course of the games that are shown on TV. Because if they don't, all you're going to hear on the baseball games, you're going to hear for about 15 minutes, you're going to hear the manager yelling at the ump about the strike zone. And the other 2 hours and 45 minutes is going to be Loogie Palooza. You're going to hear everybody spitting for 2 hours and a half. So
what I want to do next, and it ties into the next story, Rox, I want you to sing a little bit of the Black National Anthem.
For fuck's sake.
Go ahead. I mean, this is interesting. I didn't even know the song.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea.
Yeah, okay. So there you go, Tony. That's one of you'll be singing in the shower.
That's
tonight.
The Black National Anthem.
The Black National Anthem.
Do we have the native national anthem? Hi, how are you? Hi, how are you?
No. If you fuck with us, we'll TP your house because the TP is our house. Yeah.
The Spanish national anthem. A mariachi band. Like, what the hell? What the hell? Come on.
But if you would have told me there was a Black National Anthem, I wouldn't have believed you. But there it is.
I said, sure. Doesn't everybody know that?
Hey, wouldn't that make the Chinese national anthem?
Picture. I got your picture, so I can love you from the inside as well. Yeah.
I thought it'd be
I don't approve
chopsticks.
of any of this.
All right. So we'll
one country, one national anthem. There you go.
And it's a
Cut and
tedious.
dry.
It's a tedious one at that. I can't wait for the fucker to end before every sporting game. It's like, please, can't we do a shortened, abbreviated version? Let's get to the Rockets red glare thing and just, the big money note and get out of this thing. WNBA players, that's the Women's NBA League, Rox, are going to wear jerseys with the names of women who have been killed and the words "say her name" on warm-ups. This is your moment to shine. Do you think it's appropriate for dead people's names to appear in sporting events on the backs of jerseys?
I think it's admirable for them to highlight women who have been victimized in this way. Yes, I'm all for that. Say her name, because a lot of times, sometimes we hear about men who've been victims of crimes, certain types of crimes, but we don't hear about the women. And so that movement is just all about
So
just
explain
also
this to me.
highlighting that.
Explain
Go
to me,
ahead.
like Eleanor Roosevelt wouldn't count because, I mean, she's dead, but she wasn't. You have to be what? Is it murder? Is this a
Probably.
murder?
I would, well, just tell me some of the names that are going to appear on the jerseys, and maybe I can tell you.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously, it's Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, Vanessa.
These are people that probably died because of police violence or outright killed by police.
Now,
But what about the ones killed by black men?
Yeah.
Well, they're highlighting the ones killed by police.
No.
Well,
the
that's
NBA
horseshit.
players will. No, the NBA players will have the names of the black guys who did it on their jerseys. I mean, I really don't
I'll
know.
be in attendance.
No, but this will tell you something about where I live. The WNBA players will also wear warm-up shirts that say Black Lives Matter on the front and say her name on the back. And these slogans will be featured prominently in the courts where? At the IMG Academy right here in Bradenton, Florida. So the WNBA.
Actually, what would be even better is no penis allowed.
Yeah, well, I mean, look,
Yeah.
Again, I don't know what to say about this. I mean, are people really going to hone in? You know, it would be better for me if the players were to tell the stories. You know, if they're going to show the WNBA basketball games on television, that, you know, the home team, maybe during the course of the broadcast, a couple of their players would have the opportunity to tell the story of the name of the person who was on the jersey. So there would be context in this. I don't know that anybody's going to be looking with binoculars and going, I can't make out what that says. I mean, I don't know. It's the stories themselves that are haunting, not the names of the people who were the victims. And if you don't know the story, then it's kind of hard to relate the whole thing. And it's a lot more than you can do with a name on a jersey. But I thought it was interesting.
I would agree with that, but who's going to sit through the stories? I mean, we're already complaining about just names appearing on the jerseys. Who's going to sit through their stories?
Well, I'd say I would be more interested in their stories and seeing it put on a jersey, because putting it on a jersey.
I'd be more interested in their stories than sitting through a game.
Yeah, the WNBA isn't the most exciting thing in the world. I'll grant you that. But they're playing here in Bradenton, so they'll be bringing more disease with them, which is really good news for our area. I know that we're looking forward to that tremendously. But, you know, I don't know. Then you have Mike Scott, the NBA player, saying that what I said the other day, that the NBA's jersey message is all messed up because choosing a bunch of things you can put on the back of a jersey, they gave them 20 choices, and instead of letting them put what they want on. This is a real simple thing. I mean, I live in a homeowners association neighborhood.
Same.
And and you can't just paint your house, chartreuse. You can't just let your grass grow out.
What are you, one of those Miami quiz? Chartreuse.
Chartreuse, yeah.
You can't paint your garage pink and bright yellow polka dot. You can't. Your gate has to be secured. Even your garden has to be intact. They can fine you for that too.
Now, the other thing that's interesting is that in my experience with homeowners associations, they have a lot of pre-approved colors if you want to paint your house. But if you have a color in mind, you bring it to them. And they look at the color and they approve it or they don't approve it. Well, I don't understand why they didn't work with the NBA Players Association to say, okay, you come to us with what you want to put on the back of the jersey. And if it's something like fuck Adam Silver, it's like, nah, I'm sorry, they could have made this a little bit more heartfelt rather than corporatize the thing by, well, one of 20 things, which one of the 20 are you going to put on the back of your uniform? There's a lot of things that maybe the players could have come up with that the league would have sanctioned and approved. But I mean, it comes off as being really dominating and controlling. And again, it takes away really the emotion of the message to all of these things, which is what marketing does. It tells us that, the fine family of, what was it, Flex? What is that shit called, Rox, that we keep seeing on Fox Network? That stuff that's like a paste and it won't let water.
Flex Seal?
Flex Seal, the Flex Seal family,
I wouldn't mind those things. I just wait for when these woke NBA assholes in 6 months to be, vote Kanye on the back of their jerseys.
Well, I mean, I can't
Kanye
listen.
West.
I'm wondering if he gives a presidential address, will it be auto-tuned?
Well, his banner will just be Kim's ass.
Yeah, it'll be Kim holding the microphone with her ass cheeks.
It's on Spotify. It'll be full screen.
Now, then there's I'm looking where I really want to go in all of this. A Major League Soccer.
And the next baby is going to be named Go West.
Oh, I got you.
Nice reference.
And, the rest of the stuff, I mean, I was looking at Zach Plezak's story. I mean, they must want this guy to get COVID. I mean, when they shut down spring training camp in Arizona, poor Zach traveled to Florida, hoping, like most players, for a quick end to the pandemic. But as it dragged on, Plezak made his way to Cincinnati to train at a facility there. It seems like, I think Zach Plezak is the main carrier of this virus. I think we can trace all these increases to wherever poor Zach has gone. By June, he had made 3 trips down to Florida, looped back up through Cincinnati and Indiana, where he had to set his clock back 20 years, before finally landing back in Cleveland for the start of training camp late last month. I mean,
he was the lead scout.
He could have walked fast. He could have walked back to Cleveland faster.
Yeah, but the thing is that Plezak is a guy who, he made 21 starts and went 8-6 with a 3.81 earned run average. Yeah, he really did a nice job. But he's another one of these fellas who is just trying to make it in the league, and he did really well in Arizona in the spring. But he's challenging for a spot in the rotation. A young player is going to do whatever he can do to make it. But man, it's amazing what these guys, some of them are doing just to hope for 60 games. That it means that much to a Zach Plezak and to a guy, to another guy who's already making his money. It's not that big a deal just to say I'm opting out to spend time with my family or whatever and not deal with the virus. It is a financial consideration. So, I thought that was interesting as well. The mileage that he is, put on is incredible. That's really about it. I mean, it is it's shocking to me what's happening. We had another, 8,000 cases of COVID here in Florida today, and it's getting close. Baseball's 3 weeks away. Is that correct, Rick?
July 23rd, 24th, somewhere in there is when they're supposed to start.
24th.
And that when the training camp start for NBA too, don't they?
Yeah, well,
July?
basketball starts on the 30th.
30th?
Yeah, 2 games. It's gonna be New Orleans and Clippers, and no, Lakers, Clippers, New Orleans and Jazz.
No. Oh, and happy birthday, Zion.
They said he lost 25 pounds and gained 10 in muscle.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Turned
So he's
20
been
today.
Looks
We'll
good, too.
see.
They showed the pictures of it.
Well, I hope his legs are stronger because boy, that's the hard thing right there. You know, and then the 4th of July thing with the fireworks, you know, did you get a lot of fireworks in your neighborhoods?
Yeah, especially at night. And over here, we have an ordinance against that, but people were still lighting fireworks. It was crazy. I was scared our house was going to catch on fire.
We had some, but I think we actually had a few more fireworks on July 3rd than we did on the 4th.
You know, it was interesting. You know, they were talking about that national sales of fireworks were hugely up. So that's why I was asking you guys if you experienced that, because we did here. We looked out the window. There are people blowing up fireworks. I mean, nice displays. We're not talking about just popping cherry bombs. I mean, these were, you know, big burst in the sky kind of deals.
Yeah.
People, and that doesn't come cheap when you know, when you have a bunch of those going off in succession, you can blow a lot of money real quick and you know. But there was a campaign that went with it that was, you know, to be careful because they knew people would be handling more fireworks. And the poster child was Jean-Pierre Paul.
Mr. I'll have 2 coffees.
Yeah, exactly. And he didn't do anything with fireworks. He was out clubbing.
Man.
That's it for this edition of Moohead Radio. We end up on a high note. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and thanks to the panelists for jumping in. Sorry I was a little late today, but shit happens. We'll be back again like we always are. I know, man.
I'll be on that show too.
One week after another, but we're back on track talking about sports, and maybe we can will some of this to happen. And I want everyone to remain healthy. I want baseball to get off and get their 60 games in. I'm just really wondering how that's going to happen. But thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you on Friday. And until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.